Welcome into the Scoop Sports Podcast. We're joined here by Mr. Tobias Bass, Texas Tech alum that is now a content creator for NBC Sports as well as a college basketball and a high school basketball recruiting analyst. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but can you tell us about your correlation to Texas Tech basketball and what you do for a living and all of that?
Like you said earlier, I'm a Texas Tech alum, graduated in 2018. Spent about a year in grad school before moving home, before the pandemic happened. Pretty much now, man, I work for NBC Sports. I do a bunch of their fantasy basketball stuff like that. I have a scouting service where I scout for a bunch of different colleges and help them as far as their recruiting. And I do some college basketball analysis stuff for Adam Zagoria and Zag's blog website.
How did you get involved in that? Was there something did your major at Texas Tech kind of correlate to that, or did you just was this the hobby of yours that became more of a profession?
So ironically, one of my biggest mentors in life has been Ray Caldwell. Texas Tech fans will know him. He was the assistant basketball coach for the women's team. In like 2016, 2017, his daughter was Rashay Caldwell, who was a McDonald's All-American. He was really pushing me to get into the recruiting space. I fought him on it for a while. I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it. I fought him on it for probably like 2 years or so. I remember he invited me to an event during peak COVID in Mansfield. It was a Wooten 150. It's a McDonald's All-American evaluation event. He paid for me to go up there, and I had a blast, man. It was I had a really, really good time, and I think ever since then, this has just been my main focus. I think I kind of found my real passion for the sports thing.
Oh, well, hey, we're in the same boat as you, man. We really appreciate guys like you that are doing what you do, kind of letting us know what's going on with college basketball and Texas Tech in general. But we'll kind of hop into it. We'll talk a lot about the transfer portal. It's been on fire lately. It seems like it could be news for this sort of transfer hub. It's been created here at Texas Tech over the past few years. We've heard a few names like Fardas Amick from Utah Valley, Kendrick Davis from SMU, Tyreek Key from Indiana State. And I keep on seeing these things all over Texas Tech Twitter, which Texas Tech Twitter is taking a life of its own now, as well as several other sources, like including yourself, that tie us to these names. Are we a legitimate contender to land these names, and if so, why?
I think Fardaws, I think they're in a great shape. If I was predicting, I think Tech would probably get him if I was betting. Tyreek Key, I know he really enjoyed his visit. I know he's really, really high on Tech, but that decision is going to be a while because he has to visit Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, I believe. So you might not even see that division, that commitment until I'm going to say probably May, or definitely the end of this month. But I'm guessing probably May. So I know he enjoyed his visit. Tech can make the scholarship work. It wouldn't surprise me if they brought in a guy like Key. And then Kendrick, I love Kendrick. He's a good player. He's from my hometown. He can really play. Best player in the portal, in my opinion. I don't think Tech will get him. They do need to prioritize a point guard, but I don't know if that's the one specifically.
And touch on that a little more, because when Kendrick Davis just dropped his top 5 about 10, 15 minutes ago, over maybe closer to an hour, and you said that you think he would choose Memphis possibly or Houston over us. And I kind of wanted to ask, is it because of the coaching style? Because I feel like Texas Tech is the school nowadays where transfers come, or we're getting JUCO guys. We're really not going after 4 and 5 star like Houston and Memphis. I mean, Memphis had Moni Bates last year, one of the top prospects. Is that more of your thinking? Kendrick Davis is that elite of a player and that highly touted that he'd probably choose a school where he can kind of do his one-on-one matchups, do his thing at those schools versus Texas Tech, where you're gonna have to play team basketball kind of?
I think it's just Penny plays a big role in recruiting. Penny's everyone's favorite player. A lot of people love watching Penny. So when you have a guy like that as a head coach, you have Rasheed Wallace on that staff. You have the other coach that coached at SMU, the Hall of Famer. He's on that staff as well. That plays a significant role he wants to do. I mean, I get it because they're going to let him do whatever they want. He's going to ball out wherever he goes. I would like to see him play somewhere else just because Penny hasn't done a good job at Memphis. Like they went to the tournament this year. They won a bunch of games towards the end, but as a general, overall, he hasn't done a great job, but I understand why he would go over there.
Okay, so kind of back towards Texas Tech. So like to get these names, these are some of the names I just listed are the top transfers in the portal.
Right.
What makes us like a legitimate contender to get these names? Is it Mark Adams and his ability to recruit? Is it our fan base? Is it maybe some NIL donors that we don't know about? Do you know anything about this? And why our name keeps on being brought up with these highly touted recruits?
I think it's the culture. I think it's the culture that Mark Adams, he continued to build up the program, and they're winning. A lot of people thought that when Chris Beard left, that was it. That was it. A lot of people, even fans of Tech, they thought it would be the end. I mean, even me, I didn't think they were going to be able to do, because what they did last year, that was impossible. You lost basically the entire team in overnight, and you had to bring in a bunch of new guys and fit a bunch of pieces together. You didn't have a recruiting class. So for them to just build that culture, the fans are crazy. They love their Red Raiders. I think it's just a combination of everything. And then, seeing that game when they played Texas, that was one of the best environments probably of all time in the regular season college basketball game. So I think when you add all those things together, I think, and then with the Big 12, you're going to get scouted. They're going to be scouts at every game. There's pros in this conference. So I think you add all that up together, it's a perfect mix if you're a transfer.
And I have a quick question about some of the incoming recruits for Tech. Can you give us a little insight on Pop Isaacs and kind of if you've evaluated his game at all and what you think? Because I've always thought you bring in these 4- and 5-star kids, I think they should start automatically. That's just my thinking because, you put your best foot forward. You have young guys getting minutes early that way. Texas Tech is the school to play juniors and seniors, you know what I mean? Like, we're not always starting the 4- and 5-star freshmen. I can't think of one that played good minutes since Kyler Edwards probably. And I just want your thoughts on Pop Isaacs and where you think some of these recruits we got are going to go and, kind of just your thought process on that.
I think Pop's really, really tough. He's a really good passive decision maker with the ball in his hands. I agree to somewhat what you're saying. It's just it's the Big 12, and he's gonna have his bumps and his ups and downs. But if you can bring in a veteran guard that probably will start over him, he'll be a good mentor for him because Pop's really good. But I don't see him as a 1-and-done or even a 2-and-done prospect. So more than likely, he's going to be at Tech a couple of years. So him learning from an older player, you can bring one in like a Kendrick Davis, some guys like that. I think that would really help his overall development. And Tech trying to stay competitive. They're trying to advance far. And, Mark Adams, Chris Beard, they like older players. That's just what they've wanted that with every level they coached at. So I think Pop will be fine. He's definitely going to play, important minutes, but it wouldn't surprise me if they brought a guard in to, just help lead him along the way.
Well, that is contingent on the transfer portal. We see it now more and more with these freshmen that go to these schools and they don't get that immediate playing time just right off the bat. And we see them just hop on to the next school. We saw that kind of we saw it with Chibuzo Agbo. I can't even remember his name now, but one of our higher rated recruits that transferred to Alabama 2 seasons ago due to Namari Burnett. Yep. So we continue to kind of see that, and now it's become more of a thing. Especially we just saw Tyrese Hunter, a huge contributor to a very successful Iowa State team, enter the transfer portal. And Iowa State was really on that come up. It seemed like they had gotten their new coach, they had gotten their new core. Tyrese Hunter was the face of that franchise, and now he's entering the transfer portal. Is the transfer portal, what do you think about that? What is that? Is it ruining college basketball? Is it making this free agency element more interesting? Does that offer a different element that kind of makes the competition more overtime? It requires that more recruiting element. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's just fascinating because, before I never understood why players couldn't transfer in the first place. And because in any other sport, softball, baseball, soccer, they all can transfer one time and play immediately. I never understood why basketball was the only sport that they wouldn't let them do it. But I think it's fascinating. It brings a different element to the team. Unfortunately, it makes coaches' jobs harder because, season ends, you have to re-recruit your own players back. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think it's a little blown out of proportion a little bit. It's kind of like the new girl at school. Yeah, she's hot, but once you see her a while, you're like, yeah, she looks good, but I've seen her enough now. I think this is what's going on with the pool. It's new. It's the new girl on the block. But I think over time, it'll always be a big part of college basketball. But I don't think it'll be this serious. You have over 1,400 players in the portal right now. I'm going to say 400 of them, unfortunately, they won't find a new school, and But them putting guidelines and days on it and things like that, it just makes it harder. So it'll be a big part going forward, but I think eventually it'll calm down. But right now we're going in, this is year 2 of this. It's going to be like this for a couple of years, I think.
Gotcha. And I want to bring up Demarion Williams, the Gardner-Webb transfer. Do you know, what do you know about him? I looked at some stuff on Twitter, kind of read a little about him, but I really don't. I didn't watch any Gardner-Webb basketball, to tell you the truth. So I was just curious if you could give us a little insight on him.
He can play. He's gonna be. I think he'll be more of a role player. Probably come off the bench. He'll probably maybe a guy they even put in to get buckets off the bench because Tech last year they shot 28% from three.
Yeah, that was I
Yeah.
literally hated on Tech from the beginning of the year. The fact that they couldn't shoot, defense will keep you in the game, but you got to score at some point to get you over that hump, and I think that kind of showed in the tournament.
But just look at basketball. Let's look in the last, let's say, 5 years. You've never seen a team defend their way to the national championship. You've never seen it before. You had that Baylor team. They were very good defensively, but they had pros. You had that Virginia team that we lost to a couple of years ago. They are very good defensively. They had pros. They had at least 4, if not 5 pros on their team. So you're going to have to be able to score. And I know Mark Adams, they're big on the defense thing, but you're going to have to be able to put points up. Scoring 60, 62 points, that's not going to do it. The game is so fast-paced, especially when you're playing a team like Baylor, Kansas, and things like that. You're going to have to be able to put up points. And I think they know that. I think Tech, they're going to have to try to get back to what got them there a couple of years ago. You had Keenan Evans, a bucket on the perimeter, Naeem Stevenson, Culver, even Brandon Fresh. He was inconsistent, but he could score. You're going to have to put a roster like that together, and I think they'll be fine.
And I agree with that. Sorry, Kate. I'm just going to go with the Drew Steffi narrative. He's a shooter. I think you need to bring in that mindset, too. You got to recruit guys who can score the basketball and defend. I mean, if you're playing – he's a 6'3", 6'4" point guard. But, hey, if you got length and can shoot it, I don't really care what you're doing on the defensive end if you're giving me 20 points a night, I think you can hide somebody like that even if they're not good. That's why I think Tech, in a way, should have gone a little further with what kind of offensive weapons they had. I think Bryson Williams should have shot the ball more. I think Davion Warren, I think he was a great shooter, and I just think getting in this new offense I don't know. I really don't know. I think he just got out of his rhythm when he left Buffalo, and I just don't know.
So are there any names that we're not hearing? I keep on seeing all this stuff all over social media that there's murmurs of, guys in the transfer portal that are off Texas Tech's radar completely. But is there any of those guys that we might not be hearing about that could end up on the court for Texas Tech next season?
I'll keep an eye out for Grant Sherfield, the point guard from Nevada. He's really, really good. I think that he may not be as popular as Kendrick Davis, but the production is definitely there. I believe he averaged like 19. He almost put up, I think, 7 assists a game. He's a really, really good player. He's a name to keep out for. I hate to do this, but there is a name. I can't give it to you yet. Just keep an eye on it for going forward. There is a player. He's really good. He's really good. He is a point guard. He really wants to come to Tech. If Tech will take him, he will come to Tech. We should, if they decide to take him, you'll probably know that information. I would say, if not the weekend, maybe next week. This is if they want to take him. I know he's locked in. He's ready to go.
You can't even give us a little hint. Does his name rhyme with Byreese Chunter?
No, it's not him. No, it's not him. But yeah, it's not him. But the player, he's a really good player. He'll have 2 years left of eligibility. He's a name to keep out for. We'll see if they want. I talked to a couple of coaches on the staff, and they're definitely interested. But I think they may be trying to get another player too. So he might just be kind of waiting at the moment. But I think ultimately they'll end up taking him. It's just this process is taking a little longer than I was expecting.
And Grant Sherfield, that's the kid out of North Crowley, correct?
Yeah, I believe he is from Dallas. Yes, he is.
He went to UCLA his first year.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah. I like him. I would love to see Tech. He's a little bit bigger, bit thicker than Kendrick Davis, but he can play. I really do like him.
Yeah, I played him in high school, and he had a triple-double at, I think, halftime against us in the playoffs. But he can shoot it, too, also. He's a really good – he has a nice shot on him, too. But
well, Tobias, the question that everyone is wondering is the status of Kevin McCullough and Kevin O'Banner. We all know that McCullough declared for the NBA draft, which actually in a recent draft ranking released by ESPN, they had him at number 57 out of 60, but he's ranked, which is, if he doesn't get drafted, do you see him returning to Texas Tech, or do you see him possibly exploring the transfer portal?
Well, he's going to have to make a decision before the draft even starts. He has to make that decision, I think, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I believe. So I know that Adam, they were at his house earlier this week, meeting with him to see where things are going. There's also been reports that O'Banner is probably going to come back, and there's a rumor that Terrence Shannon is even thinking about coming back as well. So I think that if O'Banner comes back, I think you'll see all 3 end up ultimately coming back as well. I think they'll probably try to get some business done. But K-Mac, he's on board. I've been talking to a lot of agents, a lot of draft guys. He is going up the rankings a little bit, on the draft boards a little bit. So, and I get it. You can go make his money, and maybe some of these guys, they don't want to go to school, which I understand. So maybe he will. I think he may keep his name in the draft.
What about Terrence Shannon? I want to talk about him a little because everybody last year and the years prior said he's gonna get drafted. Now I don't see him on any draft boards. And I was just thinking, if he does leave, I think Terrence is a great guy, great player. But do you think he'll be on a draft board next year and possibly this year? What do you think? What do you think if you're Terrence Shannon? What do you do this upcoming year?
So for him, he should have just stayed last year because he ended up getting hurt. He missed the first game, that little agent weird thing that happened. But for him to get on a draft board, I think he would have to come back. You have to come back and like really, really play better. What's weird is you if you get like an Amit or O'Banner comes back, his role won't change. He'll probably be the third or fourth option. Because Tyson's going to shoot it. You're going to have O'Banner's going to shoot it. Ferdow's going to shoot it. Even if you get a K-Mac back, he's going to have the ball. So I know Tech would probably love to have him back, but for him, he would have to really, really, really play well and carve out like a specific role for him. I know he shot a good percentage for it this year. I think it was a little misleading because he shot like 86 of them, decent volume, and he shot like a high percentage. But I think he would have to really carve himself to like a 3-and-D role, and maybe you could see him on the board, or maybe a team will take a chance on him.
Gotcha. And Jalen Tyson now. That was a big story last year. He said he decommitted from Tech to follow Beard to Texas, and now Mark Adams brought him back. And I just want a little insight on Jalen Tyson because I've watched his highlights and stuff, and I think he got bigger already at Texas Tech. I don't know what they have him on, but he looks huge. But is he a starter for us next year? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think he'll definitely start. He'll probably be a top 2, if not top 3 scorer on the team. He should come in with a major chip on his shoulder. I mean, last year, he basically wasted time at Texas. Didn't play much. There was a bunch of rumors going around about what happened while he was there. But he should come in with a major chip on his shoulder. He's really, really talented. Very, very talented. I think that he'll come in and try to, make some noise for himself.
So I know that I really consider Tyson to fall into this category as this kind of somewhat of a high school recruit because we haven't seen him suit up, or we've seen him very, very shortly on the college basketball court. But we have 4-star point guard Pop Isaacs, 3-star shooting guard Lamar Washington, 3-star power forward Robert Jennings. Can Texas Tech become more of a home for high school recruits, or is our brand of our program kind of already labeled as this transfer portal university?
I think they're always going to be in the transfer portal sweepstakes. I mean, because like I said, Mark, he likes older players. At every level that he's coached in, they were all old. There's always a bunch of older guys. So I think there'll always be it. I think that they'll definitely, prioritize recruiting because you have to. You have to have some younger guys on your roster. I just think that they're going to have to carve out a niche because you listen to shows and talking to like Jay Wright and Tony Bennett, they've changed the way they recruit. At first they were about, big fish only, but one thing about the big fish, they want to leave. But, Villanova, Virginia, those guys, they're top 100 recruits, but they stay 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 years. So I think Tech will probably be in that same boat. They're probably going to get top 100 guys, not in the top 40, maybe 60 or below roughly, and they'll probably stay for a couple of years. They'll get a 5-star recruit like a Jamias or something like that, on occasion, but I think their niche is probably going to be top 100 guys that want to stay because Tech doesn't run an offense that caters to a 5-star recruit. There's not going to have typically one guy that's scoring a bunch of points at the team thing. So I think that, recruits know that, and I think that they're going to get guys, don't get me wrong, but I think it'll be more lower top 100 recruits, if that makes sense.
And you touched on it earlier. You talked about how Texas Tech, you need pros to go deep in the tournament, right? And I agree with you on that. Yeah. But if you look at 2018, 2019, the team that went to the final or the national championship, I talked to a buddy of mine who works for Gasso, and he was telling me how we had all guys who were 23 and 24-year-olds, basically. I mean, all those guys, Mooney, they're all older guys, like you were saying, what Tech likes. But is it crazy to say you could not just stick maybe a 4 or 5-star like a Pop Isaacs and guys with like that and make a run with? Like, you don't have maybe any pros, but you got 22 and 23-year-olds along with a little 18-year-old running around who can flat out play. And I feel like that should be Tech's MO if you're going to bring in these transfers. Throw at least one, or the Jalen Tyson's basically still a freshman. I mean,
yeah, it can definitely work. I think that it can work. The kid would just have to be special. It would have to be really fine, like a role. I mean, the last 20 years we haven't seen the team with predominantly freshmen win the championship. The only time we've seen it was Duke when they won with Justice Winslow and Jilla Okafor. That was the only time you've seen it. You've seen teams that close. The Zion Duke team ended up losing. Even this year's Duke team, very young. They lost. So it's an older thing because players, a lot of the older guys, they typically played in big games, if not tournament games. They know how to do things to make William Burt freshman, he won't understand that. It's not his fault. He just lacks that experience. So those add shots late in games, those add up. So an older player, that's why guys, they typically like older players. And he's older. He doesn't have to get adjusted to college. He doesn't have to get adjusted to balancing work life, basketball and just his own personal time. A freshman, he has to learn those things. So that's why the portal is such an attractive thing.
And that formula worked really well last season with our tremendous unexpected success. But now this season, the expectations are much higher with a proven Mark Adams. Yeah. What do you expect for this team going into next year with everyone else in the Big 12 Conference going through the same offseason as us? How do you expect us to match up with a completely new team against, the Big 12 Conference?
I think obviously there'll be a tournament team. I want to see what pieces they bring in. But you saw today, Baylor brings in Jalen Bridges, the transfer from West Virginia. They bring in Keontae George. He's like a top 5 player in the class. He's really, really good. And you're going to have L.J. Cryer comes back. Langston Love off the injury comes back. You're going to have Flagger come back. You're going to have a bunch of those guys coming back. So Baylor's going to be loaded. Kansas has 2 McDonald's All-American coming in and a bunch of other bigs that are really 3 McDonald's All-Americans, just a really good recruiting class. Texas will be in the mix. I think Kansas State will be much better. So this is the best conference in America. So every game is going to be a dogfight. I think they'll be fine. I can see them finishing in the top 4.
And I want to touch on that. All those schools you just mentioned have really top recruits. Like Kansas, like you said, they have 3 McDonald's. You got Grady Dick there, and then McDonald's Keontae George. I watched that kid at Louisville. He can play. Yeah. He can flat out play. Really good. And then you look really at good. Texas, the guy from I want to say it's not South Grand Prairie.
Arterio Morris.
Yeah, Arterio Morris. Unbelievable talent. Athletic, out the gym, can shoot it. I mean, that's why I thought when Beard left, I was like, give him a year and people will realize the recruits he's going to bring in to play at that Moody Center. But I think Mark Adams will be completely fine against them. I mean, we were fine last year. But I'm really excited to see that matchup with all these 5 stars and Beard's recruits versus Adams' recruits.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be exciting to see. I mean, even Kansas, they typically do this every year. They typically have 1 freshman that's really good, and the rest of them are pretty much older guys. A couple of years ago, you had Josh Jackson was the freshman, but you had Frank Mason, Devontae Graham were the older guys. You go back before, Joel Embiid was the freshman. You had a bunch of older guards around him, Kelly Oubre as well. So they typically have 1 freshman that's really good. He'll be a lottery pick, but the rest of their players are typically very old. That's why you saw Kansas, they ended up winning it all, but you saw them struggling at one point. They're old at guard and they're old at center. That's typically where they're old. This year you had Remy Martin. He was old, but he was battling a bunch of injuries, and he didn't look good early. So they were having Braun and Obaji have to play out of position. That's why they were struggling. But once Remy started playing Remy ball, they ended up winning it all.
Yeah, the Big 12 proves once again. I mean, you can't – we're the SEC of basketball. I think that now it's 3 years in a row we've been to the national championship or representing the national championship. But anyways, moving on more to Texas Tech and our team, can you name a player that's currently on the roster right now? I know there's very few to choose from, but can you see any one of those guys having a breakout season next season? My personal thought is Malik Wilson. I'm a huge fan of him. I think he could be an NBA talent if he develops an offensive game. But do you see any other players, including Malik, having that breakout season next year?
I'm going to go with a freshman. I'm going to go with Lamar Washington. I saw him in person last summer. He's really good. He's going to be a guy. He's not ranked super high, but he's really, really good. He's just a gamer. When the lights come on, he performs at a high level. He's going to be a freshman. I think that he's not going to be on any preseason, freshman of the year award. He's not going to be on any of those, but he's a guy I think that can come in and make an impact immediately. He's a really big shot maker. He's tough as nails. He really defends, and he's a really good basketball player. He'll be there a couple of years, but I think he's a guy that people might just skip over him, but I wouldn't. I think he's going to be a really good player for Texas Tech and in the conference going forward.
Gotcha. And speaking on Texas Tech, Mark Adams, with the job he did, from your point of view, what did he do other than hitting the portal and stuff? What did you notice about him that Beard didn't do? Like what made Mark Adams have such a successful year this year? Was it his assistants he brought in? Like what really put it all together? Because most people had us finishing like 7th or 8th in the Big 12.
Yeah, expectations were low, but the thing is too, when your expectations are low, when no one expects things, you can just come and sneak around and do what you have to do. They didn't hide away from the work. They knew what they were up against. I mean, I was one of those guys in the boat, and I talked to Coach Adams about it, Coach Williams. We talked about it. I did not think they were going to be good last year. I really didn't, because everything was up against them. But they just got it from the dirt. They said they knew what was being said. They just got it from the mud. They didn't make excuses. They weren't saying we should be ranked here and all that. They just didn't hide away from the work, and they just won. They won, and they got a good group of guys in there that had no egos. Everyone's egos left at the door, and they really got those guys to play hard for them, and it was a very, very good season for them.
And do you think got any guys maybe possibly, I know you got Adonis Arms who's leaving. Do you think any of these guys who are done with college basketball have an NBA career possibly? What do you think about Adonis?
Adonis is solid. I think you'll even see him playing the summer league. He's a good player. He's a good defender. I don't know if he shoots it well enough. I think that'll probably be his big thing. I don't know if he shoots it well enough.
But it's not very broken. It's not a broken shot. It's
it's not broken. I just don't know if it shoots well enough. I mean, what he can do is defend. That'll be his thing. He'll come in and be a good defender. He's strong, very good athlete. Maybe he could sneak his way into a roster. I think Bryson Williams is a guy too, especially if he can keep shooting it the way he's shooting it. He can be definitely a stretch four on somebody's team. He'll probably play limited minutes, but he's a guy that's worth being on someone's basketball team, I think.
What about Davion Warren?
Davion Warren's another one too. He can really score. He can really score. I want to see how his workouts go, because I think he's a guy. I think he may impress people in the workouts for sure. I think he'll go in. Someone's working here, really shoot the hell out of it, and I think they'll probably like him and see. But I think you'll see all these guys from someone's summer league team. They're just gonna have to play well.
Yeah, and that's it. All comes down to how you do in the summer league. But those are some athletic guys that definitely have the athleticism and the mindset to make it at that next level. But my last question is just kind of a fun one that no one in the world knows the answer to right now, considering all the moving factors. But can you give me a prediction on Texas Tech starting lineup on game 1 of the 2022-2023 season?
It'll be some transfer point guard. Tyson will probably play the 3. Verdaz at the 5. O'Banner at the 4. And the 2. If K-Mac comes back, he'll definitely be starting. If not, it'll be probably another transfer.
You don't think Malik will step up into that role, or even Nadolny?
Nadolny, no, because the one thing about Nadolny is I like Nadolny. He plays really hard. He was a good, reserve role for the team. But if they keep getting guards, he's gonna have to leave because they're not gonna have enough scholarship. And he, unfortunately, it's no disrespect to him, but someone has to go. You got 13 of them. Somebody has to go. So unfortunately, he would probably be one of the first ones to leave. So I'm not starting. No, Malik's a good player, but he doesn't bring you. He doesn't bring you much offensively. Tech already struggles to score at times. You can't have guys like that on the floor starting.
Well, Tobias, we really appreciate you hopping on the podcast today. We talk Texas Tech basketball all the time, so having someone of your caliber that actually knows what they're talking about, rather than us two goofballs talking about it, we appreciate you hopping on. So we're welcome. We'd love to have you on another time, maybe when we have
definitely
of an idea of what this Texas Tech roster looks like. But we really appreciate it, man. If y'all haven't checked him out, go follow him on Twitter, Tobias Bass. He has a lot of news on college basketball, especially pertaining to Texas Tech. Appreciate it, Tobias.
Yeah, have a good one, bro.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, definitely. I'll come on anytime you guys ask. I'll probably even be there in the summer. I don't know if you guys will be there in the summer, but I'll be there. So maybe we can even do this in person sometime.
Sounds good, man.
Awesome, bro.
All right, have a good day, man.
All right, man. You too.